Hype. Now, I'm watching WWE and the Hype Bros are in a tag match, but I genuinely wanted to talk a little bit today about hype. Um, when I did my season projections in terms of who I thought would make the opening night rosters, and then when I'm talking about how teams are going to do, I get asked a lot about rookies, guys coming over from the KHL, different European leagues. Hype. Um, I've been a Canucks fan my whole life, and one of the worst parts of being a Canucks fan is hype. Um, Let me just think back here. Yuri Bubla was hyped; he was going to be fantastic, and then it, there were all kinds of problems with Yuri Bubla. That's why when his kid Slager came over, his name was Slager and not Bubla. Um, there were a lot of expectations when Ivan Holenka came over due to age. Didn't quite work out. I remember Vladimir Krutov. There was all kinds of hype for him when he came to Vancouver. Troy Gamble generated tons as a rookie. Not his fault. He got concussed constantly. The concussions were. It was really, really sad with Troy Gamble. As much as Kirk McLean was fantastic for the Canucks for a few years there, Gamble had a higher upside than McLean in the beginning. And that upside would never be realized due to his concussions. I think, too, there was a lot of hype surrounding Adrian Plavsic when he first came into the league. There was a lot of hopeful Canucks fans when Robert Nordmark first came in. I remember fans kept complaining that Sergei Shirkov would have been a top six player, but the Canucks ruined him. Jesse Schultz, there was a lot of hype around him at one point. Brandon Reed, Steve Correa is another one. Would I say King? Jason King. Sure. Dixon Ward. And at the time when Luc Bourdon passed on, I had already started wondering if he was going to be another one of those. We'll never know. But I had started wondering if he'd been built up so much by fans he couldn't live up to that. The the Canucks, and then who else? There's other players. Cody Hodgson was obviously hyped when he got traded to Buffalo. The world was coming to an end. The sky was falling, and then Hodgson had basically one good year, and then he's found himself out of the league now. Geez, who else? I'm going somewhere with this because I it just from supporting my team, I can remember all these guys who've come over, and Joakim Eriksson, the Canucks won a bid off for his services as a number three goaltender. The feeling was that he was going to be a number two, and he had a lot of potential. And I remember fans were so excited that Eriksson had signed in Vancouver, and then nothing. Nothing. He played one game in Vancouver, and it was in relief, and he wasn't very good. And that was it. And then he went back to Europe. Anton Rodin is being hyped coming into the season in Vancouver. And when I hear people talk about him, and I hear, he's going to be good. Look what he did in the Swedish league. Yeah. Joakim Eriksson looked fantastic in Europe a couple years ago too, and it just didn't translate to the NHL. It's one of those things that during the off season, it doesn't frustrate me. I don't get upset, but I don't buy into it. So when Toronto fans talk about Zaitsev, Chicago, Kempney, because odds are at least one of those two is a flop. Odds are. And that's just because I remember Yuri Depita. I remember Vesa Vidakovsky. He was going to be big. Anybody ever heard of him? No? Exactly. I can look through any number of hockey magazines I have and go through and find guys who were going to be big because they'd done well in Europe or for whatever reason. And it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. For me anyways, I reserve judgment until I see somebody on the ice. Like if you look at my prediction for the Canucks lineup, I don't have Rodin in it. And I don't have Anton Rodin in the lineup for a reason. Because he hasn't made it yet. And because when he was over here before in North America, he didn't crack the roster. And that was even though he was a second-round draft pick and he was hyped up, as he's going to be whatever. And then he struggled in the American League. So you can go over and play well on European ice, which is different. European game, which is different. And he can come over here and he can be another Joakim Eriksson. Where we get him and it's like, yeah, look, we signed this guy. Great, this is great. He's going to be awesome. And then it just doesn't happen. It happens. You can name at least 2 or 3 players a year in the NHL, like Shirokov when he came over for Pittsburgh last year. Or not Shirokov. Frick. See, I got Shirokov on the brain now. Remember when Shirokov came over for Pittsburgh last year? Every year Shirikov's going to come over. No, it wasn't Shirokov. I like this because there's people right now yelling at their computers. Because, Panarin, everybody's like, oh, well, Panarin was great. And Panarin was great. Panarin was fantastic. And then, you're going to have guys that aren't. Plotnikov, 45 games, 3 points. He wasn't projected to be a scorer, but he was projected to be better than 3 points. Let me just take a quick look here. See, I thought there was one last year in Anaheim that was on that same hype, and then it just didn't work out for him. I guess it's not them I'm thinking of. Or the guy I'm thinking of wasn't on their team. Tikhonov, Victor Tikhonov. I remember before last season. Oh, he's coming back. He's going to play for Chicago, and he's grown up, and he's a much better player now. 50 games, 6 points. He's out of the league again. And this is what happens. These guys come over, and everybody hypes them up. Oh, it's better now. It's going to be different now. They're going to be better. And then usually they aren't better. Usually it's the same player that they were, reminds me of that quote, they are who we thought they were. They're exactly who we thought they were. It's a great quote. It's definitely worthy of being used in this situation. I just don't have a podium to slap my hands on and look around like you guys are all idiots. Herman Edwards, great job. It's sort of like how every year you'll see teams signing veterans, and you'll see fans saying, oh, so-and-so had a down year, but man, now he's with this team, and he's just going to be great. This is what he needed, and he's going to be great. And then it just doesn't happen. Yeah, I'm looking for more. I'm sorry. I'll stop soon, I promise. I know there's more in here. And it's an interesting topic because right now, as we get ready for the season, the preseason, this is what people are going to get excited about. And preseason stats people get excited about, and I'm not sure why. This guy's got 4 goals in the preseason. He's going to be awesome. And it's like, it's the preseason. The coach could have been in net. Find out. Pay attention. I remember Jesse Schultz. Jesse Schultz was a right winger. And he was going to come in. He was going to play with the Sedins. And he's going to be great. And then they asked Vigneault. And Vigneault, basically in as nice a terminology as he could, hinted that Jesse Schultz probably wasn't an NHL player. And all the media went nuts, and I remember fans going nuts like, "Oh, this kid is gonna be great, and we're gonna just leave him in the minors, and this is just awful." Same crap I heard about Shirokov. It's just preseason hockey's not the same as regular season. Hockey gets tough fast. And kids that, have all kinds of room to skate and do all kinds of cute stuff in the preseason, they don't have that anymore when the regular season starts. But we're going to see guys who fans are excited about right now that aren't going to make it. And then you're also going to see, and this is my favorite thing, is when a team opts to keep a guy who's, around 30 years of age, is experienced in the NHL, has proven himself worthy of bottom 6 minutes, and they'll pick him to make the team over some flashy kid who might have scored some pretty goals in the preseason but doesn't fit into their top 6 currently, and then fans go nuts. How in the world does Cracknell make the team and this other kid who's fantastic didn't? And it's like, because the role that they're using Cracknell for, that kid wouldn't have fit. Everybody has their role on a team. I use Cracknell as a name because when he made the Canucks roster last year, I remember some people weren't happy about it. I don't care. I want to see the best possible team. I don't care who it is. I really don't. I don't care who's capable of being good later. I want the best team on the ice now. So that's why I don't have Anton Rodin in my Canucks roster when I look at who I think is going to be in there, and that's why I don't get excited about Toronto's Zaitsev on the blue line. Yes, he played well in Europe until he plays well in North America. I have a hard time with college kids because college kids can struggle at the NHL level. It is very, very difficult to take leagues that are as different as NCAA and NHL or KHL and NHL and try to make the stats line up because they don't. That's why Brandon Bochenski's fantastic in the KHL and he wasn't very good in the NHL. And I loved Bochenski. I'll use him as an example because he played for Boston and I really liked him, but he had no hands in Boston. And he played in Ottawa, and I liked him in Ottawa. But he just didn't have that complete package. And in the KHL, it just works for him. And I have no problem with him. He's a guy that if Vancouver came out and said, well, we signed him, we're bringing him over in a PTO, I'd say, now you're getting it. It's funny because the reason I'd be more thrilled with him than Rodin is because it's already been proven Bochenski can play in the NHL and he can play a bottom 6 role if he has to. He can jump into top 6 if he has to. And with the numbers he's put up in the KHL, I'd give him a look. And Nigel Dawes is another one. You'd give him a look. And it's funny because, these guys have played in the NHL, and all I'm saying is give them a look. I'm not saying they'd make the team. I'm not saying they're not going to end up back in the KHL. So it's one of those things that I really wish the hype train wasn't so out of control in the off season, but it is. And it's because we're itching for news and hope. If you're a fan of Toronto right now, Vancouver, basically any Canadian team, you're looking for some rocket that you can strap your team to push them into the stratosphere in the NHL. And until any of these European players play in the NHL, I just don't have a whole lot of faith in them because they haven't proven it yet. And when a guy's in his mid-20s and maybe he's going to be good now, I go, okay, maybe he's good now. But I remember when the Canucks brought over Tommy Santala to be their fourth line center, and that was bad. It was very bad. And there are moves that are being made by teams right now that will be not that bad, but still not that great either. So I just temper my excitement. I want to see Canadian teams do well. I want to see Canadian teams in the playoffs. And I also am well aware that a lot of these European players coming over from European leagues, they're going to disappoint. It's reality. And I don't have an opinion one way or the other because you don't know until the season starts who's going to struggle and who isn't. So I guess we'll see. But that was something I just wanted to talk about today because I get asked about guys who are coming in out of the KHL. I get asked about guys coming in from the NCAA. VC, I genuinely think scores 50 points. I didn't mention him in my Rangers preview last night because he wasn't in any of the magazines. And I honestly, when I think about the Rangers, he's not the first thing I think of. And neither is Brandon Peary. Brandon Peary's a 10 to 15 goal guy. Good player. He's not a game changer. So I don't change my prediction for the Rangers based on that. So that's my explanation for that. And it is really hard for NCAA stats to translate to the NHL because whoever wins Hobey Baker doesn't necessarily become a really good NHL player. They've started to. Jack Eichel, I think, is a benchmark, and if VC proves himself in New York, that Hobey Baker is going to be elevated. But I remember Kip Miller, Hobey Baker. I remember Hobey Baker winners that never made the NHL. There have been plenty of those. And so you have to take it all with a grain of salt. So it's not that I'm a prick, and it's not that I'm ignoring people when they talk about whoever from Europe or from the NCAA. It's just you just don't know. You just don't know. It's a crapshoot at best. So I just wanted to say that before we get further into the season previews, and I'm going to at some point start hearing, well, wait a minute, you don't talk about the European guys, KHL guys. Nope. You don't talk about the NCAA guys and what they might do. I will sometimes, but in general, it's really hard to project that. For whatever reason, until a guy's played in the actual NHL, it's virtually impossible to tell how they're going to be. Emerson Edom in Vancouver is a good example. Scored goals everywhere. Got to the NHL, couldn't score goals. Damnedest thing. And he was projected to be a top 6 scorer and a sniper, and he was projected to all these things. Just couldn't score at an NHL level. So it's not just NCAA or KHL either. It's this guy hasn't been in the NHL yet. I reserve judgment. And that's that.